That's it's actually the first time I ever saw it. After all these years, I'm glad I saw it on this big screen with Roger back there, and I have his voice in the Virginia Theater. I learned a lot. I've seen Citizen Kane many, many times, but we're always so busy that I didn't have time to stop and listen to that commentary track. He's very proud of it, as he should be, and I hope you enjoyed it today. And maybe we'll do it again sometime. There are a few others that he has commentary tracks on, but that is the one he won an award for. And last year, I knew that Citizen Kane was coming up for some, I forget exactly what was happening this year, but I suggested that we do that because he loves doing the shot-by-shot analysis, and Jim Emerson now does them at the Conference on World Affairs in Boulder for Roger. And anyway, now I'm just babbling. I'm going to turn this over to Nate Cohen, but thank you.
Thank you, Jane. I didn't know she was going to turn this over to Nate Cohen. So I'm just going to introduce Jeffrey Lerner and who produced the commentary track, and David Bordwell, who are going to do commentary on Roger's commentary. Thanks.
Well, this is an extraordinary way to end the festival with such an extraordinary commentary on such an extraordinary movie. So I thought I would just ask Jeffrey some questions about some things to contextualize it, to contextualize the actual, the DVD, the history of the production and so forth. Maybe talk a bit about the experience of recording Roger, and then make a couple comments myself, but then mainly open it up to questions. As you know, we have a screening here later this afternoon, so I've been asked to keep this pretty tight, but I think that we can try to squeeze a lot in. Just the Citizen Kane squeezes a lot into 2 hours, and Roger squeezed a lot into his really remarkable, dense commentary on the film. So let's start. Jeffrey, the context partly is the history of DVD, and I think that maybe because we're so used to DVD, and they're so much a part of just our ordinary entertainment, we forget that they're a comparatively recent invention. 1996, I think they appear in Japan, 97. They're available in the US in Christmas of 97, and 98 is when they really start to become more widespread. I guess in 1999 is when they kind of take off finally with The Matrix. A lot of people bought DVD players in order to see The Matrix.
That was definitely a big one. But I just want to say, that was so amazing that everyone was responding to this commentary, and great to be here. And wasn't it just amazing to hear Roger's voice again?
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. The DVD, it's really weird because Laserdisc, does everyone remember what Laserdisc was? Yeah. They were like those big clunky things, and now they're somewhere in someone's garage, like mine. I know I have them. The Laserdisc had a special feature format in it, which allowed extra tracks or still pictures, but it still wasn't a great quality. But once DVD was introduced, the quality is a digital quality picture, had digital tracks for audio, and had a lot more room to include, as we call it, the goodies of what we do, and do behind the scenes documentaries, audio commentaries, still galleries. And it was neat because I think once people started buying in the format, they said, wow, what are we going to do? We have all this extra room on this thing. What am I going to do? So they started putting trailers and promos. And then someone had the wise idea, said, wait, we did some stuff in the Laserdisc thing. Maybe we can just put that on there. And then it just exploded.
A lot of people now will buy the DVD for the extra material, right?
Keep on doing that. Keeps me employed. Yes, no, it's very good. And it's it was just a wild thing to be there right at the beginning of that. It was like 99, 2000. And it was just explosion. People were like really avid. The film school generation embodied that and really wanted to get involved. All those people that do electronic press kits or EPKs started putting that material on, and they said, well, that wasn't good enough. Let's do some special things that were just for that. So then the DVD producer would be part of the equation. So we would
Part of the shoot. They would go to the
Yes,
shoot, part of the production. They're planned in from the beginning now, aren't
Yes, actually, that took a couple more years, but I would go on meetings. I did the first 5 Harry Potter films. So I was in the trenches right as they were shooting, and they were going, we don't know what we're doing. What do you want? So it's like you have to talk to the filmmakers and then the studio, but it's exciting, and it still is. I think even as we transition into the downloadable content, there's still going to be a need for behind the scenes. You guys watch it, right? Everyone watch behind the scenes, enjoy it? Great, because it'll still be around. It just may be downloadable, and we hope you download it. But Blu-ray is great. That was a great Blu-ray disc that just got released.
Yeah, it was a Blu-ray. Now, in terms of what you arranged to put on the DVD, what were the decisions that led up to asking Roger to participate in this project? I guess I should back up, though, because Roger did one of the very first commentaries, didn't he?
Well, he did one.
Dark City was one of the very first, I think, to have a critic commentary.
Critic commentary, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So what was the decision behind Kane and asking Roger for this?
A lot of it had to do with the frame-by-frame tour that he would do at colleges, and on the cruise, I guess there was a cruise that Roger would do that, and gained a lot of popularity, and the executives at Warner said, that would be really cool to have someone who is in the public, because I think at that time, as Siskel and Ebert at the movies, and Roger's notoriety as a popular film critic, it was important to, especially for the seminal film, to have that voice, and what a unique voice that is. So it was decided that we'd go out to Roger and Peter Bogdanovich for the other commentary, who was Orson Welles' biographer. He lived with Orson. And we decided there was a little back and forth about doing that, and we finally secured it. So I took a long weekend. It was June 28th, 2001. I can't believe that was that long ago. And then July 2nd, 2001 is when I did Peter in New York. So I was in Chicago and then went to New York to record those.
How did the session go? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was funny. It's like, I get an address, it's like the secret address that no one knows about, and no, I cannot tell you where Roger lives. And I'm greeted by Carol, who's his long-standing assistant, and funneled in, and I go, where are we recording this? And he goes, in the theater. I'm going, where? Is it next door? He goes, no, it's here in the house. So he has this great theater in the basement that has real seats. It had a facade of this theater. It was really funny. And we're like going, okay, now what do we do? Because he has all these buttons and gadgets, and he has all these remotes. And I said, I'm not going to be the guy that screws up Roger Ebert's home theater. Especially since he just put in a very nice Runco projection projector. And so we're sitting there and like, okay, so finally got that working. And we recorded, set that up. So that both of us would be sitting so we can watch the screen. Roger brought in, as he does, he has a special table that he had that would fit over both seats of a regular theater seat. So it was a little wider. He brought Pauline Kael's book and another book, and I had my notes, and we were just huddled there, and he had a little light, and then he goes, okay, we're going to do this, right? And then he goes, okay. And then Carol comes in and says, you got to go. We got to get you out of here. So it's like, there's all this pressure to go because they had to go function later that night to go to Chaz and Roger. But once the lights came off and the projector started, it was a magic moment. It's like, wow, I'm sitting here going, I'm sitting next to Roger Ebert. I'm in the balcony with Roger Ebert. And I was just like, wow, this is someone who came from film school, and this is a big moment. I said, okay, now don't say anything to screw this up. So I just like sit there Roger was wonderful. We would sit there and we'd go through the movie as much linearly as possible to.
I mean, it's like one session. You did this
One session. Yeah, we did start and stop. I mean, but there was transition points and also to go over like certain things like, McCormick and insult and certain legal things, and also pronunciations, or if you want to go back and look. And we tried to time it, but we would go back and forth, but we tried to keep it going as long as we could in a straight stream. But we did stop after the real break, about an hour into it, took a break, came back, did it, and then toward the end, I would just ask them some questions. And actually, if you notice that this is so jam-packed, it's wall-to-wall almost, and I think that's impressive for somebody. And he did not use note cards, and he didn't have it scripted, because I think when we talked, it's a different feeling if you're reading a whole script. It feels very forced, and I think he wanted the spontaneity because of that. And also, just his sheer enthusiasm for this material is it's astounding.
There's a nice blend between preparation and spontaneity in it. I mean, clearly he knew all this anyway, but he's reminded himself, made his notes, but at the same time, he's getting caught up in watching the movie again and saying, no, wait, well, I didn't mention this before, but now I want to mention this, and going back. So there's a sense of it's being, real-time recording, and at the same time, I mean, it's amazing that this was all done in one session. I mean, it's just, the fluency of it is remarkable, I think, and even though you recorded things that go back into it, for slugs you could drop in at various points, it's still very smooth, very continuous.
Well, that also took time, too. We edited it. We actually had a lot actually, there was so much material. If you go to, on both the 2001 release and I believe the Blu-ray release on the still gallery, if you click on that, you'll hear a whole chunk of stuff that we couldn't actually fit into the commentaries.
Okay.
There's about 20 minutes of additional Roger Ebert commentary. So if you go back to the DVD, you may find that, which I think is really great. So these are the stories that were outtakes or just wasn't fitting in. But once we got back to the editing studio, I would come in and try to smooth it out. We rearranged things, moved things, because everything was read to a time-coded tape, which was the master for which they produced the DVD for. And once that we got back and edited it, we noticed that, like we were trying to take out a lot of the pauses or the ums and ahs, and then we started doing it, and then we said, it doesn't sound like Roger. It doesn't sound like because what I experienced sitting next to him was the sheer enthusiasm and energy, and we wanted to preserve that. And that was something that was very important to me and my the editor that I work with in the mixer when we mixed the final mix that you heard tonight, to keep that the flame of that film passion alive, and I'm very happy we did. So.
Yeah, there aren't many commentaries, I think, that could stand alone as performance pieces the way this one does. If you look at most commentary, there's a lot of marking of time, and some of the most embarrassing ones are when directors have their actors with them. Don't you find this, where they're just like, oh yeah, remember that's when he knocked over that glass? Well, we didn't keep it in, but then they laugh, and that fills up time, and and they're always laughing at each other's jokes. It just seems like silly. But this is really, penetrating and thorough, and I think it's a rare film. Well, first of all, it has to be a dense film anyway, I suppose, that can sustain this kind of really in-depth probing, but also the sense of a fertile mind kind of playing over it and finding always new things to talk about. It's not many films that can take this, but on the other hand, I think not many people have that sort of focused intelligence to actually parse it out that way, in a way that doesn't seem like you're learning anything. It just seems completely spontaneous and easy. I mean, one of the things that strikes me about seeing this film again is, first of all, how noisy it is. I mean, it's constant sound. I mean, there's almost no silence in the movie, and there's no chance for Roger to wedge things in for us to listen to something. But also, it really repays that kind of in-depth focus. And I would just like to say this before everybody dispels. I think it's really important for us to pay attention to movies. And this is why we should hate tweeting and texting and emailing and checking your second screen during the movie, because enjoying art really depends on attending to it, paying attention to it. And we know if we know one thing, it's if we know one thing, we do have limited channel capacities. So when we're looking at one thing, we're not looking at something else. And if we're looking at our second screen, we're not paying attention to the big screen. And watching things at home and doing stuff while you're watching is fine, but when you're all together, that sort of focused attention of a group is tremendously important, I think. Okay, end of sermon. So in a way, another thing that might be interesting to think about is that there's a kind of puzzle. Yes, sorry?
Before we open for questions,
Yeah.
I have a note from Roger that he wants me to read. He sends his apologies to the lady in the lobby who was loudly demanding her money back because he kept talking during the movie. So apologies from Roger.
So we finally found somebody who's more of a purist than Roger is. More of an absolutist about the movie. Now, the other thing I was struck about this, in a way, we talked today about movies like Memento or Magnolia, that movies you can go back to and watch again and again because the director has dropped these little hints and little points into the movie that you're supposed to notice on another pass. The new puzzle movie is kind of about recidivism. We're supposed to go back and watch it again, and sometimes that feels like a homework assignment. But with this movie, you have really one of the first, I think, where the director expected people to actually see the film again and notice these little touches. I mean, Roger made a beautiful point about the glass snowball on Susan's vanity table. First of all, if you see that movie in a small screen, you may not see that. I mean, it's really designed for the big screen. And obviously Wells and Toland did not want to make a close-up of that because that underscores the whole point of discovering it for yourself, especially with the picture of Susan as a little girl. And it's that kind of thing that can A, only be seen on the big screen, but that B, only gathers its value if it's made indirectly, a point made in passing, that makes this movie so rich and able to sustain the kind of crystalline intelligence that moves over the film from moment to moment. So in a way, if you like puzzle movies, those movies the director gives you something extra in every shot, in a way Wells founds that tradition, I think. Okay, now in time-wise, I have to check. Yes, please, we're ready for questions. And if you have a question, I think there are microphone wranglers who will try to get to you. We have trouble seeing from up here, so forgive us if we look like we're scanning the horizon.
Would you like to stand? Okay. Directly in front of you?
Yes, thank you.
I'm not sure how old Roger is, but we were in college in the same time. So he was probably a young boy when that movie was originally made. And I'm wondering how he was able to get such in-depth knowledge about that without talking to the director or the people that made it, or maybe possibly Orson Welles himself. I'm interested in how he was able to get that depth of intricate information about how they screened it and the different pieces.
Well, I knew I'd be in this situation of answering for Roger, which is one of not the greatest places to be. But let me just try this. This film, of course, has a kind of legendary status, both for the film viewing public and for the history of cinema, but also for film researchers. I don't think any film has been more carefully studied by film scholars, film historians, film critics than this one. Possibly, as Roger mentioned in his opening commentary, Birth of a Nation, probably Potemkin, and so forth. But in a way, without taking anything away from the many original points and insights Roger brings to the film, he also had the advantage, as any of us do, of drawing on a big tradition of critical and historical research on the film. So, to take a quick example, Greg Toland, when he wrote about this film in the early 1940s, and when Wells talked about the film in the early 1940s, didn't really emphasize something that Roger emphasizes really pretty consistently through the presentation, and that is the importance of special effects in this film. In fact, I don't want to badmouth Greg Toland, but there's a sense in which he kind of took credit for shots that were actually not done in the camera, that were done in post-production through the kinds of techniques that Roger talked about, double exposure, matte painting, and things like that, particularly the optical printer shots. Toland kind of muffled that in the initial publicity around the film, but researchers had been able to discern those things by interviewing people like Linwood Dunn, who did the special effects, and other people who were on set, Robert Wise, the editor, and found that indeed there was a huge amount of special effects in this movie. That kind of thing that work is out there and has been done, and Roger brought it together and made it salient for people, I think, in this presentation. What's important, I think, is that Roger pointed out that this is a movie that summarizes the mature sound cinema could be. I think that's exactly right. It brings together, it crystallizes so much of what had been going on in the 30s, not only in film, but in theater and particularly radio, brings it all together and kind of then takes it to the next level. Well, in a way, that's what Roger's commentary does, I think. It brings together a lot of material that had been known, it adds his own new insights, and then lifts them to another level because we're enjoying them in real time. We can actually see it. We're not just reading it in some scholar's book on a page. It's right there. The evidence is visible for us. We can see it. And that, I think, just takes it, again, as I say, to the next level of intelligence.
And also his just encyclopedic knowledge of this film was incredible. It's hardly referenced those books when we were sitting there. Also, it's just, pointing out the things like the hat jiggling and the going through the sign and the little things like the spelling of Susan the wrong way. And it's just those keen insights were just enthralling. And I just wanted to thank Roger. Thank you, Roger and Chaz, for inviting me in your house. And making this, because I think he says it, that people thought cinema started at Star Wars. Like for my generation, it didn't. Started way back, and made me a fan of this movie to this day. I cannot stop when there's a channel and not see Citizen Kane and appreciate it because of Roger Ebert. Thank you.
Okay, we're in front of you on the aisle.
Sorry? Oh, yes.
Yes, I have a question about commentary tracks in general, and I'm curious if either of you know, or maybe if anyone in the theater knows, what the first commentary track ever recorded might be.
First commentary was done by Criterion and Janus collection. I can't tell you the exact. And Laserdisc. It was done. Is it King Kong? It probably may have been King Kong. Where they brought in the two people who started the company brought in a expert to talk about it as just an illustration, and it kind of caught on, and Criterion and all the other studios did that for Laserdisc, and then that became part DVD.
It's worth mentioning that Criterion has prided itself and made it actually a part of their business strategy to have exceptionally good commentary tracks, bonus materials, and things like that for classic films. Studios themselves, of course, deal with their own contemporary releases and things that are in the studio's catalog, library. But the Criterion really, they go out and get very unusual source material, background stuff, that really set those things apart. And they become, in a way, like college courses, or at least, a class in filmmaking. So aspiring filmmakers, buy or rent those discs to study the commentary material as a way to get behind the scenes in the creative process.
It was way back for Laserdisc. It was amazing.
Yep. Anything else?
Yes, in the front, a little bit to your right.
Oh, yes.
Well, I first saw Citizen Kane as a very young teenager, and it was the most exciting film I'd ever seen, except perhaps for Emmanuel. And the reason it was so exciting was because everything that was on screen was in focus, and everything that was in focus was interesting. But that also sort of terrifies me, because I know Woody Allen said that the reason he loves the movie is because in every shot, in every scene, there's a new treat. And whenever I watch it, I'm always worried that I'm missing the treats, because I'm never quite sure where to look. And I've seen it dozens of times, and I'm still worried that I'm missing these treats. And I just wondered, could you give us some advice? Do you have a system? Do you know any tricks for watching Citizen Kane and really sucking the marrow from it?
Pay attention.
Well,
a lot of attention.
Roger's enlightened us about his system, which is to watch it many times with many people and let everybody throw some things in. I think it's pretty remarkable, that tradition that he's created and that Jim has sustained of Democracy in the Dark, where you show the film once and then you replay the film and people can simply shout out stop and notice things. As you know, Roger's essay in our catalog talks about how a student was able to show something to him that he had never seen before in the corner of a shot. How we scan or rake up the frames, what can I tell you? I mean, when I started doing film analysis, it was well before even VHS, and I just managed to get the film on a flatbed viewer and watch it shot by shot, going backward and forward as much as I could. But just as I tried to say before, I think it's just a matter of kind of focused attention and maybe deciding to watch something then opposite to what you would normally watch in the scene. Because Roger makes this point too about how the narrative carries you along. I mean, really, what people are saying, what they're doing, the performances and the faces and gestures, that's the kind of through line for most movies. And the editing then respects that, the lighting respects that, everything is there to make you pay attention to the performers and the through line of the story. But once you know the story, once you have registered that material before, you can resist the tug of that a little bit, I think, and then start to explore what else is going on, listening more acutely on the soundtrack or paying more attention to the corners of the frame. But I don't know if there's an actual method for it. Roger once showed, years ago, he showed one of the films I think is one of the greatest films of all time, Playtime. Many of you were here for that, I think, yes? Yeah, Jacques Tati's Playtime, which is this to the ultimate degree, where every shot almost, there are 3 or 4 different things going on, and he's not directing your attention to everything in them. And this is a little bit of the scatter effect you get in Kane, but magnified more. And Kristen and I once thought of, if we ever did a book on Playtime, we would include a grid, a plastic sheet of paper you could lay across the film, the shots we showed, and say, okay, look in quadrant S9, you know, and you'll see this. So in a way, I think it's just a matter of repeated viewing and focused attention. But many films repay it. Many films, not just films as dense as Kane.
Another comment from Roger.
Okay, this is good. This is good. But maybe we could work out a signal flashes or something too.
But just wanted to mention that Robert Carringer, who's an English professor, retired English professor at the University of Illinois, did the commentary track on Magnificent Amberson. So you should also, if you're interested in listening to good commentary, that's something else, another DVD that you can get hold of.
Yes, okay. That was an extraordinary set. That was a Laserdisc set that had not only Carringer's commentary on Magnificent Ambersons, which is worth the price of the set in itself, but had many other soundtracks, including the entirety of a Wells radio program that he had done of the Magnificent Ambersons a couple of years before. So you could actually listen to the entire show. It's now on the net. You can hear it there. But in the day, it was amazing, before DVD, to be able to listen to Wells's radio version of Ambersons and then turn around and watch it. It was extraordinary. But yes, Robert Carringer is one of the premier scholars of Wells' place in film history, and he did a remarkable book called The Making of Citizen Kane.
That's a good research book.
Yeah, and another even longer book about the making of Magnificent Ambersons, because of course that was released in a form Wells didn't approve of. Thank you for that, Roger. Thanks for reminding us. Anything else before?
Yes, from the balcony.
Yes.
Hi. So I noticed that during the commentary in the scene where Susan Alexander tries to commit suicide, that the deep focus shot appears to be not quite perfect as far as deep focus is concerned. You have the extreme foreground in focus and the extreme background in focus, and the middle ground is out of focus. And, that's something that people have been playing around with more recently, but I'm wondering whether that's, sort of a bit of a botched attempt at deep focus, or whether he might have been trying to paint the importance of what's in the background and what's important in the foreground, and saying that maybe the middle ground isn't quite so important.
Roger's correct what he said about this being a kind of multiple exposure, where they shot the foreground first. That was the plane that was recorded, and then separately they shot the middle ground and the background, the one that Susan's. The important point is, you're right. It's Susan's head is out of focus. When Kristen and I were doing some research, when Linwood Dunn was still alive, we were able to ask him, and he said that was quite deliberate. That they wanted her out of focus, even though it's an impossible photographic effect at that point in history. To do it in the camera, that is, to have the foreground and the middle ground out of focus, foreground in focus, middle ground out of focus, background in focus. Though now you can do this digitally, I believe, yes, with either cameras or in processing programs. But at the time, they wanted Susan in darkness and out of focus quite deliberately. And interestingly enough, Toland, when he was working with Wyler, he played with this too. If you know The Little Foxes, which is a film released the same year as Citizen Kane, there's an important scene where, although the rest of the movie is in crisp, deep focus, a la Kane, Little Foxes came out later. There's one scene where Toland and Wyler agreed to keep the background deliberately out of focus, and the most important action in the scene is taking place in the background, out of focus. So Toland was very flexible about this. Once he'd mastered deep focus technique, he then started to play around, I think, with layering in not of focus planes for the sake of drama and focusing your attention, as Roger was talking about.
Yes, that was correct.
Oh, my new best friend.
We are to your left
Yes.
on the outer aisle, almost to the back of the room.
Oh, yes, I see.
Thank you for the film. I have 2 questions, but before then, I'll have to mention that I'm coming from Rwanda, and I received Thambo for the last 2 days, and one of the newspapers from home, they have been asking, who's Roger Ebert? How can you recognize Rwanda? I mean, how did you go there? And we want to know who's that person. And the next 24 hours, I called them like, look, this is Chicago, this is Champaign, Roger Ebert, he's a legend this side. And they said, can you please send a message to him? In the name of the people of Rwanda, they thank him a lot. So they say that if possibly they wanted him at least to visit Rwanda for 1 day.
Another country welcomes you.
As an African filmmaker standing in this room, I'll thank you everybody, and I'll be an advocacy for people from Chicago for the warm welcome for us to come this room. Please, we thank you, and I hope when it comes to Africa, especially to Rwanda, everybody from this room, everybody participate in the festival, you have to come. When you reach up the airport, mention that I come from Champaign, Chicago. We'll make a warm welcome to you. Thank you. Yeah. So my question is that I love the film, deeply love the film. I want to know, is possibly I can buy it before 24 hours ahead out here? Is it possibly? That's one. Secondly is that how possibly can we invite Lojal to come to Rwanda? Thank you.
I don't have the answer to the second part, but I think if you're passing through a major city, you should be able to buy the film on DVD, yeah. Any?
Yes, in the back, slightly to your right.
Yes.
Hi, a question for both of you. Do you think the trend in in commentary is toward an increasing or decreasing proportion of the kind of inane chatter filler or more meat?
I think more meat. I always am an advocate of that and trying to have people that are important to talk, or if we are asked to the directors and the writers to really find some substantive things to talk about, not like, oh, that was a cool shot. That was a really cool shot. I don't know why I did that. I got up that night and someone told me that would be a cool shot. No, I mean, it's fun to watch, with filmmakers, because actually I'm on set a lot, so it's fun to actually see it and then be available to do the commentary. So then I can say, hey, I remember that day where you guys were setting that up and there was this really difficult thing. So, I mean, it's a lot of back and forth. I mean, I would hope that, there are other producers who do DVDs and commentaries take the time. I do take the time to research and try to find the stories and the things, and then hopefully it happened twice. You've had Roger Ebert come in and basically do the whole thing. So that was the whole thing, is to say, have good people and do your research and try to make it more substantive. That's what I would try.
My wife and collaborator, Kristen Thompson, couldn't be here this year. She had to go to Egypt, and she just got back a couple days ago. But one of the things we do together on our website at periodic intervals is talk about DVD commentaries that we found that we thought extraordinarily helpful. It's a series she created called Beyond Praise, because she thinks that most DVD commentary is just kind of backslapping. But we try to list every 6 months or so recent DVD releases that seem to us to have really substantive commentary or bonus material. And if you wanted to look at our website to check those out, you'd find what she's looked at most recently that she thought had some meat to them. In terms of the trends, I think the overwhelming number is usually not very not very insightful or helpful. But there are enough, and sometimes they come in surprising places because, for instance, when they released the DVD, Disney released a DVD of Darby O'Gill and the Little People. This will define your age if you have seen this film, I think. But she found that the stuff about special effects, the history of special effects in the 50s and 60s, was very informative on that DVD. So they come in surprising places, and there are probably a lot of students out there who could give you an even longer list of really useful ones. So I think we just kind of keep your eyes open.
We are to your left, fifth row up.
Yes.
Okay. I'm 32 and I've seen Darby O'Gill and the Little People, so excited. I'm sorry I missed the discussion that you had the other day that was talking a little bit more about the distribution. And I know that for me, the availability of more things, particularly documentaries on Netflix, has been a great thing, and I'm hoping to take advantage of Fandor as well. And we've seen so many more and more obscure movies than we certainly would be able to. But on the flip side, when I've tried to get my mother into that, she says, I really miss the commentaries and the special features and things like that. So do you know of the ways in which people might still be able to enjoy some streaming stuff or some future aspects of special features and things? Or is there anybody or particular companies that are doing that?
This is a question, I think, for video on demand, if the download or streaming models will actually provide those extra things.
Some do. Apple iTunes has extras, and some others do, but it's on a case-by-case basis. But write your studios, tell the studios you want it, so that we can put those on and get those available.
There was a time when they thought that actually one of the ways they would get more business in multiplexes was they would actually have the bonus materials available while the movie was actually out, while it was playing theaters, and maybe run in one of those unattended theaters, run the bonus materials to people who had already paid the ticket for this one. I don't know if that ever caught on, but it was discussed at one point. We have time for only one more question, I'm afraid.
From the balcony.
Yes.
Hi, I just recently saw the film Rules of the Game, and I was wondering, because I noticed a lot of similarity with the depth of field and the 3 points of focus in both Rules of the Game and Citizen Kane. Were Wells and Toland aware of Renoir and his work and kind of the work that was going on in France a little bit earlier? How did that come about?
It's a great topic that you've opened up. I mean, the issue is André Bazin, a very great French critic who had seen and admired Rules of the Game and other films by Jean Renoir in the 1930s, was astonished when he saw Citizen Kane in the mid-40s after the end of the war, and thought that there was a kind of continuity of exploration among those filmmakers, that what Renoir and a few others had done in the 30s was picked up and kind of pushed to a new level by Wells and Toland in the 40s. I don't think there's a question of exact influence of Rules on Toland and Wells, but I do know that Grand Illusion, La Grande Illusion, was shown widely in the United States and was very prominent in the mid-1930s. And I'd be surprised if Wells, as a New York intellectual, hadn't seen that in the mid-30s, and certainly Toland would have seen it. So it might have been a different Renoir film that fed into their ideas, but certainly they're part of a similar tradition of that open frame, the use of many planes of action to kind of suggest a simultaneity of action, but also to try to bounce your eye from one element to another. And also, I think the one that Wells always cites is another great deep focus director of the 1930s with whom Toland worked, and that's John Ford. Supposedly, the legend goes that the tutorial that Wells had in cinema was Stagecoach. Yeah, that he went to the Museum of Modern Art and watched Stagecoach again and again, and then when asked, what are your three biggest influences, he said John Ford, John Ford, and John Ford. And if you go back and look at films like Stagecoach, Hurricane, Grapes of Wrath, Long Voyage Home, films that came just before Citizen Kane, a lot of it is there, actually.
Well, Toland did Grapes of Wrath.
And Toland was cinematographer, Grapes of Wrath, Long Voyage Home, and several. And William Wyler films from the late 30s like Dead End and Jezebel and Wuthering Heights. They all put a pushing towards this, and Wells and Toland crystallize it and push it even further, I think. Anything else to add, Jeff?
This was exciting to see it on a big screen and to hear Roger. And also, he has another wonderful commentary for Casablanca, which is now selling out there. 70th anniversary that I recorded with him as well. And I think that's worth a listen to. And thank you for responding. I was like laughing and hearing everything. And as Roger said when we recorded, he says, I'm watching Citizen Kane with you. I think that was the big thing, is he's inviting us into his version of the Citizen Kane and welcoming us into the past and this wonderful film.
And we're very grateful to you for making it possible. So we're thanking you very much.
Thank you.